Andrew here again. Hope you enjoyed my conversation with candidate for Congress John Kamen. Now let's shift on to the ongoing drama over congressional district lines and the impact on the race for Congress in New York's 3rd District, as well as this podcast. As I've mentioned earlier, last week the Court of Appeals, the top court in New York State, ruled that the state's congressional district lines, as well as its state Senate lines, were drawn unconstitutionally and in violation of a 2014 state constitutional amendment that created an independent redistricting committee. The court ruled that the new maps violated that amendment and were, quote, drawn with impermissible partisan purpose. Now, I'm going to leave it to other podcasts to delve any deeper into that ruling. The ruling's impact, though, on New York's new 3rd District, as well as its race for Congress and this podcast, those are all ongoing concerns that we have to and will delve into. The court has appointed a special master to now redraw the congressional map once again. That new map, according to a later ruling, will be completed by May 20th. That's 2.5 weeks ahead of the release date of this episode. It also pushed back the primary date from June 28th to August 23rd, though the primary for governor and other races remains on June 28th, so now there's 2 primary days, at least in this current version of the court ruling. Now, because that initial ruling came from the top court in the state, the determination that the district lines are unconstitutional cannot be appealed, at least not in state court. There will be appeals in federal court that frankly aren't likely to overturn that ruling, but they could impact the decision to redraw the maps and delay the primary because of concerns about military members having enough time to cast ballots for both the primary and the general elections and do so in accordance with current federal law. We'll be monitoring any movement in those appeals and reporting them to you as we hear more. But pushing that aside, what will become of this new 3rd District map that we've all been operating under since February, and what happens after that? Well, most experts and observers believe that a new map drawn by the special master will be based on the current congressional map in the state, though districts are going to have to get a little bit larger in size because New York is still set to lose 1 seat in Congress once 2022 flips over to 2023. If that's the case, the expectation is that the special master's new New York 3 version 2 will probably look more like the current district, currently represented by Tom Suozzi. That district is much more of a Nassau County district than the current one. So the best guess, at least at this point, is that the special master may cut the Westchester, Suffolk, and Bronx portions out of a new New York 3, may reduce the Queens portion of the district, and may make the district cover more of Nassau County. Now, if that happens, we could see other candidates in other districts right now, like the 2nd and the 4th, become ineligible to run in those newly redrawn districts, and it could push some of those candidates into the race for a redrawn New York 3. That also means that some of the candidates, especially those not from Nassau, may get pushed out of the race. That means, in particular, State Senator Alessandra Biaggi, who is the only candidate in the field right now from Westchester and not from Nassau. We shall see. Now, if that happens, those new district lines will also cut me out of a redrawn New York 3. As I've mentioned many times, I live in downtown Portchester, the northernmost community in New York 3. In fact, my apartment is a 5-minute walk from the state line and from Greenwich, Connecticut. So if the special master just trims part of the Westchester portion of the district, I could very well be on the outside of the district looking in, even if Senator Biaggi is able to stay in the race. So what does that mean for the future of this, the 3 on NY3 podcast? I don't know yet because I haven't seen the new map yet. But the ruling is already having something of a chilling effect on the race for Congress, and soon will have a similar chilling impact on this, the 3 on NY3 podcast. Candidates are already altering their schedules and geographic areas of focus because of the ruling. For example, we've been looking to host 2 candidates at a time for a series of one-on-one informal debates here on the podcast, and in fact, we had commitments from every candidate we've interviewed to participate. That is now on hold as campaigns wait to see how the district and the field of candidates are going to change once the special master issues a new map. And by the way, if I were working for any of the candidates in the field, I would agree with a more cautious approach pending the new map. A new map could change the politics of the district and which issues to emphasize. For example, a 3rd district without Westchester and the Bronx probably going to be more moderate and less progressive, leading candidates to emphasize positions on some issues and de-emphasize their positions on others. I mean, in reality, you have to know with whom you're speaking before you can determine what you're going to say to people. There's an additional question mark for the podcast presented by a new map, which is my access to the candidates. While I've never presented myself as a Westchester political journalist, and despite appearing on air for a decade on FiOS 1 News Long Island, in addition to FiOS 1 Hudson Valley, I'm aware that I'm better known for my reporting in Westchester, and more importantly, I'm seen by the Nassau-based candidates as being Westchester-based. Most candidates I've interviewed in the podcast, if you've noticed, have made specific Westchester references during interviews on the podcast for that reason. If Westchester is cut from the district, candidates may see less value in appearing on this podcast without any specificity as to where people are listening or watching. Something to be aware of. So what happens to 3 on NY3 now? First of all, the 9 episodes of the podcast and the 10.5 hours of candidate interviews that we've done so far, they're not going anywhere. They're going to remain online, available for you to watch and listen to until the 2022 general election in November and perhaps even longer. My aim in starting this was to create a library of material for voters to use for reference, to see how candidates varied their answers to my questions, and that shall remain. Also on the podcast, we've done special episodes aimed at getting to better know the disparate regions of the new district, as well as their voters and key issues. We've done an episode on Westchester and another one on Nassau. We were in talks with people who could provide similar insights into parts of New York 3 in the Bronx and Queens. Those are now on hold since we don't know which, if any, of those areas will be part of a newly redrawn New York 3. Similarly, the debates are on hold as well. The campaigns need to know which candidates remain in the race and what the district will look like before proceeding, so we're not going to schedule any debates until at least after we hear from the special master. Now, since 3 on NY3 launched a month ago, we've posted new episodes twice a week. That may have to be reduced in the days to come. Another reason you should subscribe to the podcast, so future episodes will come to you rather than having to wait and see if we're publishing on a particular Tuesday or Thursday. But I will be assembling some composite episodes in the days to come. And if you're wondering what that means, the campaigns may not have realized this, but I've covered a rather small pool of topics over this past month. Each candidate has responded to our 3 on NY3 candidate questionnaire, a set of 13 questions we asked of every candidate. On top of that, several candidates have chosen the same topics when asked to select their 2 topics to discuss with me on their episodes of the show. Climate change, for example, is one that's been discussed multiple times. And in the 20-minute segments that I've run featuring topics of my choosing, I've also often repeated topics: protecting the middle class, inflation and the economy, dealing with the GOP featuring the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Just about every candidate has had to face questions from me on those subjects. So in the days to come, I'm going to assemble some compare and contrast clips, how some candidates answered the same questions when they appeared on the show. We'll turn some of those into future episodes you'll be able to listen into or watch, and we'll do that soon. Beyond that, watch this space. After we get a new map of the new New York 3, we'll reassess and see where the podcast will go next, if anywhere. As always, your thoughts and comments will be most appreciated, especially as we all face this unexpected fork in the road together, and I very much look forward to hearing from you.